Philippe is VP of Software Engineering at Orange Group, and he is also a former winner of our CTO of the Year awards when he was at Orange Business. So Philippe, it's great to see you here, and thank you for joining me. And I think before we get into the meat of the session, which is Telco to Techno and plotting the return to growth, I thought it might be interesting just to talk a little bit about your role at Orange and what you've been up to of late, because I know you are both a doer and a thinker, if you like. You're an implementer and a strategist. So welcome, Philippe.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello, Annie. I'm really absolutely delighted to be with you, I would say 1 year more. I think that it's springtime because it's 3 years in a row right now that we are talking into this Telco to Techco strategy event. So I think it's an interesting trigger, and thanks for having me. So yes, you perfectly started depicting the situation. So I'm Philippe Ensarguet, VP Software Engineering at Orange Group. I'm 100% software background. I'm today directly reporting to Orange Group CTO Laurent Leboucher, and I'm leading the cloud native transformation and strategy. I'm also, I would say, I have also other, I would say, fits outside the Orange ecosystem because I'm advisor for different VC funds and board advisor for startup in tech. And finally, a board advisor for the Linux Foundation Europe. And I'm really proud of this because it's a particular opportunity to support the open source technology ecosystem within Europe, but not bounded in Europe. And in particular with the Silva project that you may know. So it's an industrial grade cloud native telco stack for core, run, and edge use cases. I think that when you depicted me, you said a strategic thinker and implementer, and yes, I think it's basically my position and my role today. So I've been working hard on how to manage and orchestrate the new generation of telco cloud infrastructure and telecom shift towards cloud native and becoming a cloud native telco. For instance, something that where I spent a lot of time on the last months is, I would say, as a strategic thinker. For instance, I've been contributed to the NGMN Cloud Native Manifesto that have been released on last September, and also to the Linux Foundation Networking Cloud Native Telco Initiative white paper, where we jointly, between peers, basically define cloud native requirements.
Maybe you could tell me a little bit about how those publications have been received by the industry?
Yeah, for sure. So the idea is we as a telco, we are absolutely convinced that our future is really linked to the cloud native industry and the cloud native ecosystem applied to telco industry. It means a strong move and a strong change in, I would say, how to think, how to design, how to implement, and how to deploy the network function in those environment. And it's a perfect support, I would say, for the move from a very, I would say, narrow and vertical model to an horizontal one. So basically, the Cloud Native Manifesto from NGMN is a pledge that have been signed by all the CTOs of, I would say, the telcos that are member of the NGMN Alliance. And we have 7 core principles where basically we identify the reason why we truly believe our industry needs to do the pivot. Whereas the white paper that has been released within the Linux Foundation Networking CNTI is much more techy. I would say the manifesto is bringing the whole picture, and whereas the white paper is here to bring, I would say, a very fine-grained requirement covering the whole spectrum of the life cycle of, I would say, a network function deployment on infrastructure.
Okay, so those are quite big foundational pieces of work that have been well received and in fact were kind of pushed for by the industry. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's move on a little onto our main topic, if you like. So we know, Philippe, we've been talking, you and I and the industry, have been talking for years about how telcos are transforming themselves and how they're continuing in those efforts. And yet the value of that work, and there's great ingenuity here and great effort, but it doesn't seem to be reflected in your revenues or the share price. So I'm asking you the really tough question of how do you think the network's ongoing evolution and operational transformation is going to lead to that growth?
It's not the easiest question, Annie, but I can give some thoughts on this. So for me, what is the real motivation that we have behind this idea of transforming from a telco to a techco is really to bring something new and something that can be different. The critical pieces here is that we need to understand that we need to embrace some topics that are outside the pure telco world and can have a super influence regarding where we can find opportunities for growth. And if I want to be concrete on this, what I'm really want to emphasize here is that by book, by definition, for instance, a 3GPP functional specification will stay, I would say, here to rule how specific network services has to work. But all the wrapping and the life cycle around is going to heavily change based on, for instance, intent-based and automated infrastructure, new generation of deployment strategy, new ways of doing the operation that are opening doors for new and more optimized operating model. So for me, here, what I really want to emphasize is that when a telco is transforming from a telco to a techco, basically it's embracing the full spectrum of what the technology can bring new to do things perhaps in another way and in a more optimized way. And here, something that is really interesting, and we talked about this in the past, is that basically the telecom industry is behind from 10 years what I've got when I was in digital. And it's not a problem because I would say it's the case for the whole industry. But it means that we can really learn and grab the best practices that enable or bring a fast track for the digital and the IT world into, I would say, the telecom ecosystem. And for instance, according to me, we have big factors where today here at Orange, we are really digging in. The first one is about APIization, API, network API. Second one is about the boundaries of automation that are even broader and broader as far as you understand that the boundaries that you have with your technology change when you move from silo. When you are on PNF, moving to VNF, moving to CNF, so moving from hardware to virtual to cloud native ecosystem, we need to understand that even if we are able to bring automation at each level, the boundaries are absolutely defined and static. That's why the modernization of the technology that is able to host and run our network needs to evolve. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic for the cloud native things. We have also the platforming and the platform engineering. I think that it's super tied with the API topic, whereas we are at a moment in time where basically we are all understanding with the camera thing and the open gateway things that we absolutely need to bring a 5-star experience to new kind of user for us, the developer ecosystem. And of course, the cloud native that we mentioned earlier, and perhaps the last one that is a new body in the party is AI, and in particular generative AI. Let's just consider where we move in the last year. It's absolutely crazy and madness. I don't know I'm pretty sure that in the audience, a lot of people here were or attended to Mobile World Congress. It was absolutely madness on this. So for me, the big factor for growth can be really leveraged thanks to what makes successful the digital and the IT, API, automation, the platforming, the cloud and cloud native infrastructure, and what data and AI would say we leverage as a whole.
Okay, so what you're saying, I think, is we need a lot of building blocks in place, that telcos are really in a good position with that, and that we've learned a lot from the market. So can we go back and dig a little bit into some of those key parts? And I thought maybe we'd start with APIs, and as you mentioned, there's been such a big buzz around them since Mobile World Congress, well, about network APIs, I should say specifically, since Mobile World Congress last year, and the whole Open Gateway and Camera, I never know how to pronounce that, and also there's a split view on that. So I was interested to see, Philippe, a report from McKinsey published at the beginning of this month, which predicted that over the next 5 to 7 years, that the network API market could unlock between 100 to 300 billion in connectivity and edge-related revenue for operators, and generate another 10 to 30 billion from the APIs. Now, I like that because there's a lot of billions in there. What I like a bit less is there's the could. So I guess, could you explain why APIs are so critical, which you have touched on, but also how do we make sure this opportunity does not slip through our hands this time?
Yeah. Yes, the API, the telco API is definitively a very, very big topic. So I think that we are at a moment in time where API are really important for us as a telco, because it's about leveraging the value from the underlay and the overlay network for differentiating services that can mainly happen when you are owning the network. And that's basically what we are observing. And the last Mobile World Congress that you mentioned wasn't immune for this. What I'm currently observing is that we have a kind of industry effort that have been focusing, I would say, on the last 2 years on Camera. So Camera is an open source project that is hosted at the Linux Foundation, and basically is bringing definition of new network API that can do basically two things. The first one is about retrieving information from the network, and the second one is configuring the network. When we take into account the initial focus given by Camera and the support of the Open Gateway GSMA that are working very closely hand in hand, this initiative basically today is mainly, I would say, leveraging API for mobile connectivity. But something that needs to be really taken into account is that from a paradigm perspective, basically, here we can perfectly cover both fixed and mobile, and I think that it's not an option if we want to fully support the promise of what we are calling the programmable network. So, for instance, on the fixed side today, we have some first couple of fixed API, and I can name, for instance, the home device quality on demand or the CPE, sorry. But it's true that I would say the most part of the API, I would say, are for the mobile, and it's perhaps linked to the fact that most of the first efforts have been done in the GSMA context, and we basically at Orange, we are super supportive of this for a coherent approach, for a standardization level to approach an end-to-end capability of connectivity, both with fixed and mobile. And the fact that it's happening also in the open source ecosystem, I think it's extremely important for us because we truly believe that it will definitively help to prioritize the API that has the most impact for the developer communities. So here it's mainly to be sure that we are bringing in the right order the network services that would help, I would say, B2B or B2B2C company to implement the cases where the API from the network could bring them, I would say, new superpower.
Okay. How quickly do you see progress happening? Because Camera was announced on the Open Gateway last year, and I think I'm right in saying there are 2 APIs so far.
I think
2 that have been finalized, I should say. I'm sure there are a lot more.
I think that there are more than 2 API. I'm pretty sure that you are thinking about SIM swap and location, for instance.
Yeah.
If I want to be super concrete, and if I step back to what Orange brought to Mobile World Congress, we were basically around 3 kind of use cases. So the first one was about smooth and secure user onboarding on a real digital identity app. So here, the idea, I would say, was definitively to combine number verification on one end, so frictionless phone number check, with SIM swap check. And for instance, those 2 API were used from Orange Spain production network. So the first one around, I would say, identity. Second one around location verification. So here, the idea is, I would say, face recognition payment app between 2 people. And the idea is to be sure using the device that the people are at the same location because the devices are at the same location. And here, I think the network is bringing superpower because the network location enforces security to GPS location, as even if network location is much less precise for now, basically than the GPS, but the GPS can be spoofed. And the third and last use cases that we brought to Mobile World Congress as a concrete example is geofencing. And basically here, the idea is to get notification when a device enter a given area. And I love so much these use cases. So it's today, I would say, a lab use case, but the idea is to support a Spanish company that is working on preventing gender violence. So I think it's interesting to understand that when the device is entering a particular area, you can have alerts that are triggering. So you can see, Annie, that here it's much more than only SIM swap and location, if I may say.
So I think maybe the thing to draw from that is that it's not the APIs that matter so much as the use cases and how they're executed and deployed. Okay, that's a good lesson for me to learn. Let's move on a little bit then to the next big factor that you see in the transformation of the network, and that's network automation. And of course, that's tightly linked with API. These things are all tightly interlinked. But I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about network automation, because we've been talking about it for years. Yeah. But I think what we mean now has progressed and changed. And maybe you could explain that and what Orange is working on right now.
Yeah, yes, of course. So I think that something that is super important that I mentioned previously is that we need to understand that the automation is mainly bounded with the network function technology we are using. You can automate physical network, you can automate virtual network, you can automate cloud native network, but the level of the workloads you are manipulating here is absolutely super different. And it means that what you are able to automate, I would say, end-to-end, has absolutely not the same scale and the same scope, and that's why we are so much, I would say, engaged into this cloud native horizontal model transformation. So yes, extended the level of automation and moving toward the autonomous network for us is absolutely critical, because it's about saving money on operation and bringing us in the other end operation that are, I would say, more efficient. And here, of course, the generative AI is a super disrupting potential. Today at Orange, basically, we are investing a lot into what we are calling our industrial model to support the transformation from the closed and vertical siloed mode to the horizontal one. And the idea is really to push for, I would say, an infrastructure, a deployment strategy, and operation as a whole. And it's heavily driven by basically the cloud native thing that I share. And here, what is extremely critical to understand is that we are pushing the level of the intent at a scale where today the deployment of our infrastructure is for the cloud native purpose is 100% intent based and using the GitOps operating model. So it means that we are spinning out our infrastructure in a pure software way, and the link on the infrastructure layer and the deployment and lifecycle automation of the network function is managed, I would say, with the same and convergent tooling. So it means that it brings to us a very, very strategic foundation about our infrastructure that is today Orange Telco Cloud. Orange Telco Cloud is based on the Silva open source project that I mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation. So yes, Orange Telco Cloud based on Silva is the core foundation to enable this automation. On top, we are having what we are calling the network integration factory. That is a total critical asset. The idea is to say, instead of relying on very specific and proprietary deployment and network lifecycle management tool, we are relying on something that we build that is 100% open, standardized, and that we are leveraging the best practices from the digital and the IT world. And today, the network integration factory tooling zone is just a cloud native application that we are deploying into our Orange Telco Cloud as a cloud native application with the ability basically to provide the GitOps framework, bringing all the tools that are necessary to do the deployment and the lifecycle management, and as well the continuous testing. And for us, this is absolutely critical to tie the testing in production to be sure that everything that we have been validated before moving to production are accurate once the deployment is done. And everything about this is moving up to the operation layer, where today basically we are moving to a new way of doing this operation that is much more closer than to the digital and the IT. And we are moving from what is called the SRE to the NRE, so the network reliability engineer. And a large part of, I would say, this automation is possible because of, or thanks to, the cloud native superpower. Remember, Annie, what we shared in our last discussion. It's about basically the ability in terms of resilience, the ability in terms of self-healing, the ability of the closed loop reconciliation, and the last one is about the drift management. So it means that today, being able to rely on an orchestrator with so much, I would say, capabilities is a total game changer in the way we can automate and remediate our infrastructure.
So this is about very much to capitalize and commercialize on this new infrastructure. You're looking at a global level, you're looking at a horizontal approach, because I think I liked a quotation you said to me that at a global level, without the vertical approach, it's a nightmare from the point of view of total cost of ownership. So I think that's a critical thing as well. And I'm just, so also the purpose of this terrific change in architecture, in operations, in strategy. I mean, what's more important here, doing things with greater efficiency or being able to do new things? Or, where's the balance between those two things?
I think that it's a good point. I think that something that is really rooted in our everyday action about this cloud native way of implementing telco, I would say, is both. Definitively, the first one is to deliver more efficient and more productive operation. So this one is, I would say, the first pillar, but the innovation, the ability to innovate where you are on at cloud native stage, for me is much more important, and something that we didn't address at all because it wasn't the focus of our talk. But it's also opening the door for, I would say, more sustainable environment, because as far as you're able to have the highest level in terms of computation regarding your deployment model, I would say it's less what's used for nothing inside our data center. So it's also unlocking very interesting things when you are able, I would say, to have this new way of delivering the operation, being able to innovate, and as well to only turn on and turn off when the load and when the customer are here, I think are really, I would say, exciting for what we are building.
Okay, Philippe, to my great sorrow, we're close to the end of our time. I don't know how that happened, but we have got a good question from a member of our audience who asks, how do you ensure that you maintain the network advantage against competition from systems integrators and hyperscalers while transforming to a telco? And also, would you go as far as one of your competitors and aim to be an Un-carrier? We all know who that is, right? AT&T, obviously, is the Un-carrier. Sorry, T-Mobile. T-Mobile. Bit of a brain glitch there, sorry. So, Philippe, did you follow that? So how do you maintain your network advantage against competition from SIs and hyperscalers?
I think that this question is a very good one. In fact, it's super important to say forefront that integrators and hyperscalers are partners for us. So it's very important to start with this. Once said, basically, remember when we begin to talk about the API topic, and I said, for me, what is new with Telco API business is that it's leveraging use cases from underlay and overlay, but you can only have these benefits if you are owning the network. The fact we are owning the network, for me, is a true differentiator and bring us, I would say, an agility that certainly the other player won't bring. The hyperscaler, for me, basically, up to now, are mainly here to bring the core component that can, I would say, bring new business model or new way of building infrastructure or consuming the services. So for me, they are, I would say, more enabler than real competitor, even if we need to be very focused. So yes, it's mainly I would say around this. And regarding the SI and the hyperscaler, that's why the industrial model we are working on right now around infra layer, deployment layer, operation layer is so much important, because it's where we want to standardize and apply the mutualization. And honestly, it's what I'm observing with our every telco peers. And just as a final thought, I'm happy to share that last Monday we hosted at Orange an HCNAV cloud native workshop where we had up to 6 to 7 different telco peers from Europe, from Asia as well, and basically they told more or less the same story about this need of transversality, this need of horizontalization, this need of standard. And that's why all the same telcos are working hand in hand to support basically the transformation of the ecosystem. Because here in this new journey for growth, or I would say for new ways of doing the implementation, we cannot win, I would say, alone, and we need to have the whole ecosystem doing the pivot. That's why it's so much important, I would say, to support the integrators, to support the vendors, to support the hardware makers, because we can only win into this growth revenue, new generation, if the whole ecosystem is, I would say, shifting.
Okay, Philippe, we've run out of time, which is sad. What's not so sad is that no doubt I will see you soon. Thank you as always for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a
insights.
true pleasure to be with you, Annie.